Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabad House of Delmar, together with my co-host, Mark Ronich of Statewide News Service, jbizdektvelli.com, and now columnist for the Jewish Press.
I'm having a lot of fun doing all of that, talking about how government relates to the Jewish community, or doesn't, as the case may be. And you know, we sometimes have a show about Kosher Fest and all the food that's out there. Well, we're going to talk about the food that's not out there, and we're talking about the food pantries of the Capital District. And with us today is Natasha Pernicka, who's the executive director of the food pantries of the Capital District.
Great, thanks for having me.
So welcome to the Jewish View.
Yeah, thank you.
You know, it's nice to have you here. It really is.
You know, first question I would have, maybe hopefully our viewers would maybe have the same issue. You know, we're in the United States of America. We're not in some third, fourth world country that people are starving to death. And why is there, if there's so much food in the United States, we're so blessed truly that there's people without food?
Sure. So the struggle in the U.S. is really different than what we typically think of when we think of hunger. I think a lot of it in the United States is lack of access to nutritious foods. So what you see happening is you don't see, the skinny, starving children, right? When you look around, you're seeing a lot of obesity and a lot of a lot of chronic illnesses that are created worse by people not having access to healthy food. So what's happening is that people are living in poverty or lower income brackets, and the food that they have accessible to them is, they're trying to get the most calories they can for the dollars they have. And by doing that, they're loading up on food that's available that's not the highest quality. So there's a lot of food, but the food that people are getting is not quality food.
You're talking about junk food, you're talking about potato chips?
Sure. Yeah,
stuff that's really not healthy for a person.
Well, also they go
ramen, right? Ramen soup.
Noodles.
Right? Canned soup, things like that.
Well, canned soup is high in salt.
Yes.
Because it's a preservative. And ramen noodles is a starch.
Sure.
Which turns into fat.
Sure.
And even spaghetti and other macaroni, it turns into fat if you don't exercise. So.
And I mean, part of this is really systemic too. So you're like, why in the U.S.? How do we even recognize that this problem is here? And I didn't realize how many people were struggling either until I started working with the food pantries for the Capital District. Because before I thought of, okay, the hungry in America, when someone says, help feed the hungry, I'm thinking of a soup kitchen, right? And I'm thinking of the destitute and people who are really struggling off the street. But in reality, those are not the people who are visiting our food pantries. Many of the people visiting our local food pantries have jobs. They might be seniors. It's people that have children. What's happening is that people are just falling through the cracks, and there's a lot of factors that contribute to that, and what the solution is, there's a lot of factors. So the factors include living wages. In our community, according to some studies, it's proposed that $15 an hour should be a living wage for a single adult. So that's someone living on their own without children. That's what you need to get your basic needs met. If you add a family or additional adults, you'll need to make even more than that. So one thing is living wage. The other side of it is government supports. So people, food stamps or SNAP programs, they used to be more robust in the impact that they had in people's lives. But over the years, the food manufacturing industries have a lot of lobbying towards the federal government. And so a lot of the farm bill ends up going towards food manufacturing, which is junk food, some of it, not all of it, right? But so making that manufactured food available to the community. And the real food, whole foods like produce and dairies and meats and things like that are not as a big a part of the program as they used to be, as it was originally designed to be. So you have that on top of food deserts, Have you heard the term food desert?
No, I haven't.
So a lot of Americans in both urban and rural and sometimes suburban areas as well live in what's considered a food desert. So a food desert is a geographic area where people don't have access to a full-service grocery store. So that means they might have to rely on a bodega or corner store for their grocery shopping unless they have to take a bus a particular distance. Or in rural areas, someone might have to drive 20 miles to get to a grocery store. Well, if in a household there's only one car and the person who works takes the car, then the rest of the family doesn't have access to get to the grocery store during the day. There's just a lot of situations like that. So part of it is food access, part of it is quality of food and the price points that people have. Government policies and programs complemented with the wages for our lower income neighbors.
I'm dealing with a person, it's one story that, say, a few days ago, but it's really an ongoing issue. He's always coming back to me, this person, and saying, I don't have enough money or anything. So I asked him, I says, well, you are working. I know you are. So
Sure.
It's a low-level job.
Sure.
And he has 2 children, and it's a divorce, because there's a lot of single householders.
Sure.
Now, that's what I'm saying. I think it may be a fairly typical situation of, a poor person. So I says, is there any, just see if I can be even helpful. If there's government assistance, let the government help. He says, no, I make too much for the government assistance. Mm-hmm. So I make too much, but I can't provide by the end of the month. I just don't have enough.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that would be your typical person, and we have to help them out.
That is one group of people who they're just above the cutoff for assistance. But even so, even if you make assistance, there are some people who get maybe $8 or $16 a month from food stamps or SNAP. So that helps, but how much?
Doesn't go too
You
far.
have to know you have to really know the cutoff. I don't want to say play the game, but you have to know what the cutoffs are.
Well,
and
and
you
it's,
have to go to your employer
Yeah.
and say, look, I can only make this much money because if I make more, then I get less on food stamps. But if you pay me less, then I could turn out better. Then it'll be better for me in the long run because I'll get more from.
So honestly, that's a really interesting conversation and one that I would like to have with more business owners and even become more informed on myself, because as employers, because we're a company, we're a nonprofit, but we have employees, and so we're
3.
Well, we have 7,
Oh.
3 in the office, but we have 3 drivers. So
That's volunteers, though.
our drivers are paid positions, but we do have about 30 volunteers that help out in the office on a regular basis.
Okay, volunteers, yeah.
Yeah, we do have a lot of volunteers as well.
Right.
But as an employer, it is important to recognize that sometimes it puts people in a difficult position if they want to succeed. But if you get to a certain level and you earn this much more money, now your total resources is actually going to drop.
Right.
And a really interesting story that portrayed that was in the film A Place at the Table. Have you seen that movie?
No.
It's a really excellent movie that talks about hunger in America right now and the policies and the situations. But in one particular story, there was a single mom working to get a job. She's struggling constantly, shows, the opening up the refrigerator, and she's feeding her kids lots of SpaghettiOs and just not feeling good about her situation and wanting to do more than she had. She gets a job. Initially, she's elated, she's empowered. She's actually working for a hunger organization, helping people find assistance. Turns out she's now in a worse situation financially, because she can't, she doesn't have the same resource level because of the government support diminishing.
Right, so
she's right back where she started from. That's hopelessness, you
know
can't
what?
get ahead.
It's not only that it's hopelessness, it's that the government it's a way that the government encourages you not to work because you do better on food stamps and government assistance than you do if you were actually out there working.
Well, and I don't.
It's true. It's people look at that
Sure.
and they go, I'm going to make more if I'm staying home. I'm going to stay home. And now,
Yeah.
you mentioned about the living wage of $15 an hour.
Sure.
Minimum wage is not supposed to be a living wage. And in, I don't know, 10 years or 7 years or whatever it is down the line, you are going to be at $15 an hour. But it's going to be worth only $13.
Right.
You know, we're not really ever going to be at $15 an hour.
Sure.
So, you know, it's this constant cycle. I wish that the state legislature said $15 an hour this year, right away.
To adjust.
As opposed
for it,
to,
yeah.
as opposed to 7 years down. It's like saying, okay, legislators, you want to raise? Oh, we'll have it, you know, staggered. So by the time you get your full complement of your raise, you know, it won't be worth what we think it would be in today's dollars. So,
Yeah.
you know, and they wouldn't do that. But they'll do it for others.
You know, we're on the Jewish view, of course.
Sure.
So to talk about the issue with the Jewish people, usually it's tragic. I mean, I was going to say funny, but it's really tragic where people would say, well, you know, you think of Jewish people, even the Jewish people themselves, it's not anti-Semitic. They say, yeah, well, we're well off, you know, or this is really not your situation, but just saying they're not alcoholics or they're not drug abusers or like that. They're not poor. You know, that's how even Jewish people think of themselves. And like you say, when you get into field like myself of helping people, I mean, I'm a rabbi, hopefully I'm helping them spiritually, but we do help out physically and material also. If people need a helping hand, we give them a helping hand. But, you know, like you say, once you get into the field, you see that there are, you know, many alcoholics, drug abuses, and also, back to your issue, is just that people do need food. And my son, actually, Rabbi Zalmi, set up a kosher pantry, which is called Shalom Pantry.
Shalom Food Pantry.
Shalom Food Pantry, thank you, Mark. That because a lot of the food that's distributed is not kosher, so he wanted to be sure that people are eating kosher. I mean, you know, Jewish and food is important, but
Yes.
if you're on a desert island, it's one thing, it doesn't make a difference if you're dying and you can eat non-kosher. But again, we're in the United States, there's no reason why a person shouldn't be able to have access to kosher food.
Sure.
So he helps them distribute, but he works with the kosher pantries also. And just to, you know, because they have extra food, and obviously not everything is non-kosher. Obviously,
Sure.
many products are kosher.
Right.
And he works with the supermarkets, and they just give him, you know, their access. So they are, I mean, that's the question I was going to ask, because the supermarkets are very nice. Some of them, I don't want to say any names, but some of them are nice to give, and some are just, they just don't give out any food. So
Yeah.
where do you get, like, say, not, you know, where is your resources from
Sure.
the food?
Sure.
From donations, or, I mean, food from these supermarkets saying, hey,
Sure.
they're getting out of date in a week, or we
So-
have too many?
Sure. I think people are surprised to find out the sources of food that supply our food pantry system. And I think people are surprised to find out how many people utilize the food pantry system. So in our Capital District area, we work with 56 food pantries in Albany, Rensselaer, and Saratoga County. And our members, the majority of the food that they get comes from the regional food bank. So the regional food bank is a huge warehouse.
Right.
That's their job, is warehousing food. And they get it from all over the place. They have a lot of partnerships with supermarkets, but also wholesalers and food manufacturers. And we rely on them for bringing in a lot of food. Some of it to the pantries is free as a donation, especially USDA. But then other food has a cost associated with it. So some of it is 16 cents a pound for the pantries, and some of it is actually a co-op model where it's cheaper for pantries to get the food through the co-op model at the food bank than it would be for them to go to the grocery store. And part of the reason for the demand for this is that our pantries are trying to provide food. They strive to provide food based on the My Plate model, which is the new food pyramid.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so, and you know, New York State has a unique opportunity because our New York State Department of Health provides funding for pantries. And with that comes the guidelines to distribute food based on the My Plate model. So they're giving out grains, proteins, fruits and vegetables, and trying to with dairy with all of, every time someone comes in. So, you know, the old model was whatever's donated, USDA, but now pantries are trying to provide a nutritional balance of food to people. So pantries have to order and stock. However, donated food is also important, especially when it helps complement or supplement the things that can be more expensive if they're not free. So peanut butter, tuna fish, some of the other items, just mostly canned proteins can be the things that are most expensive for pantries as a whole. But also we do have partnerships with our local grocery stores and bakeries, farms. So we try to rescue food, but there's a lot of work that can be done to improve or to reduce the food waste that's happening.
Yeah. I just want to say that's interesting, but one of the things that, I don't know, because we're small, the kosher pantry, so one person, a Jewish person said, we get the word around that we're trying to help people. And they said, I have a big backyard, and I have a lot of produce, and we're just two people. There's no way we're going to use it. We want to donate it. So it's just a very private, and it's obviously not as big as any supermarket or farm, but still, they wanted to be helpful in their own way. Hey, we have it. Again, why should we go to waste when people need it?
Yeah, that's a wonderful idea, kind of the grow an extra row to help feed them, right? So if you're planting a garden, grow an extra row, or if you have an abundance of something.
And you will take that if someone
We
off
will
the
too,
street,
yes.
here's your bag of tomatoes.
Yes.
And you can
I
take
have
it off
extra
on your
tomato.
taxes?
Excuse me?
Can you take this off on your taxes?
That's a
the
good,
donation?
from your own garden. That is a good question. I don't know. I would refer people to talk to their
A
tax
attorney,
advisor.
But I'm saying, if someone gives you food, do
Yeah.
they take it off on
That's what
their
you're saying,
company taxes or their personal taxes?
The companies, like the retailers and things like that, I believe that they can take
They
tax
can.
credits depending on the situation, but I would have to refer that to a tax advisor too, because
But
I don't know the
But in other words, when
specifics.
some people come in, do they say, well, I need a tax form so I can give it to my accountant at the end of the year? Or do you send something out to
Sure.
the people who donated that say, oh, this is your
get
the
the
total?
Yeah, sure.
Do you send that out
So
to
what we
people, or-
do so for people who donate food, we send out a letter and we value the food based on pounds donated, as opposed to, we don't inventory it, so we just weigh it. And we use this model from the national organization Feeding America. They're a national organization of food banks, and they come up with a calculation every year based on like the entire market and an average of what the donated food could be
So if
valued.
someone gave you 10 pounds of food,
Yep.
what would you value that? I mean, I'm using 10 as a round
Yeah,
number, so
yeah,
to
sure.
make math easy for you.
Oh
you know,
boy, I'm trying to remember what our tax value is, that we would assign it for our own financial records. I think it's, don't quote me on this. It's something like $1.86 $1.66 or $1.86 a pound or something
in that
like.
range, yeah.
And it changes. So that's what we use for the food pantries, like tax information. But I don't know how that translates on the other side, on the donor
But
side.
you don't send out
We don't assign a
invoice?
value to it.
don't?
We will tell you you donated 10 pounds of food, but then it's up to you and your tax advisor to determine how to value that for your purposes. 'Cause-
Boy, that's a bit it's sketchy because
yeah, that's a good question. I have never been asked this question before.
This is why I'm the reporter and he's the rabbi.
Yeah,
because it's important.
Yeah.
Not just it's not because people are giving so they can have a tax write-off, but
Sure.
if you're 501c whatever, then you should be able to.
Well, we provide the tax letter for donations of cash. We provide, if people are donating things for like a silent auction and they donate us like a basket filled with whatever, we'll say thank you for this. But then again, it's up to their tax advisor to tell them the value. So if they tell us this is valued at that, it's up to them to have their receipts.
I know Habitat for Humanity does that when they just give you a form and they say, oh, you fill in the amount that you want.
Yeah, because it's up, because nonprofits are not in the business of valuing the things that you're donating. So it's up to you to keep your receipt to say, I just bought 10 boxes of cereal.
Yeah.
You keep your receipt, we'll give you a letter that says thank you for the donation, put that together. Right?
Another question I had was just, you said there's 56, distributions, but do people have to go there? Because I'm thinking about the elderly, some people cannot get out.
Yeah.
It's very difficult even to schlep a bag
Sure.
or something, you know,
Sure.
sometimes you see these old people.
Do you have schleppers?
You know what? Some of the pantries do have schleppers. So some of the pantries do have volunteers in particular, and sometimes staff members. Most of the pantries rely heavily on volunteers, but that will go out and do home deliveries for shut-ins or circumstances. If someone calls our office in need and maybe the pantry that serves their neighborhood doesn't, we will work with them to find someone who can work with them to get them food. We're actually, it's funny that you said that because we're actually piloting a mobile food pantry right now as well.
Really?
We're doing specifically home deliveries right now in the Hill Towns region of Albany County.
Right.
And then we're working to identify some sites because we're looking geographically, we're calling it our Filling the Gap Food Pantry System and Community Needs Assessment, because according to Feeding America, there's approximately 80,000 people that are considered food insecure in our service area. About approximately 40,000 of
Your
them.
area is Capital District?
Yeah, right now it's currently Albany, Rensselaer, and Saratoga County.
Not Schenectady.
We're working with Schenectady now. We actually are excited. We have some associate members, and we plan to bring them on board in 2017.
And you
So
haven't
say
gotten
the
to
number.
Schoharie yet.
No, that's not in, at this point, it's not in the.
So say the numbers, how many people are in need?
So according
That's an
to
important
Feeding
number.
America, there's 80,000 people, approximately 80,000 people considered food insecure. So that means they don't always have the resources they need for an adequate diet. There's approximately 40,000 people who are visiting our 56 members. There are more pantries than just our 56 members, but the majority of them are a part of our coalition.
The Shalom Food Pantry is a prime
Exactly.
example. Can you reach out to?
We would actually love to, because we do get people looking for kosher food pantries, and actually we were aware of the pantry, and we should connect, definitely. And because it would be great to have them attend and learn from the other members
So
in the
they could be
coalition.
57 now.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me just ask you, it says
Okay.
here that you help food pantries provide groceries for 2.5 million meals annually.
Yes.
And that $1 can provide 6.25 pounds of food to a
Yes.
hungry neighbor.
Sure. So that
I like the neighbor part because
Oh.
it personalizes it, you know.
Well,
It's
you
what it
never
makes
know.
It pulls on the heartstrings.
You honestly never know who's
Right.
going through a difficult time.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was nice. But
But you don't prepare food, that's a whole different story, like
Yeah,
a soup kitchen.
community meals or soup kitchens. So food pantries are giving you groceries and food items to take home to prepare.
so how do you know that someone is in need? What do they have to show you, or do
Sure.
they just come to a food pantry
Sure.
and say, "Hey, yeah, look at this! Wow, I don't have to go to the
Yeah.
supermarket."
Well, that's a good question. By and large, it's based on you coming and expressing that you have a need. By and large, our pantries do not feel that people are taking advantage, because it's kind of, I don't know if that it's embarrassing, but it's a humbling thing to have to stand in a line with people who are seriously having difficult times in their life.
So you don't have to show an EBT card, or you don't have to show
It's-
some proof. Not that you're going to use
Sure.
the card, but it's a proof
Sure.
that yes, if I'm on food
like
stamps, at
income
least that gives
guidelines.
you.
So in our coalition, it's our policy, as well as the New York State Department of Health, which funds some of the food, that you have to provide food to anyone who comes and expresses a need. However, we do have guidelines. So, for example, in our coalition, you have to provide at least 3 days worth of food once a month to an individual. So if the individual continues to come back every week, if the pantry doesn't have the resources to
Yeah.
support that, because there's more, then they can't, they might not be able to do that. If the person is in a crisis, we will refer them to another pantry, but then again, they're having to go through this process. So unless they really had a need, they probably wouldn't spend the time going through that. It's interesting though, because one of the things we're trying to find out is how much food do people actually need? Like, we have our guidelines of a minimum of 3 days worth of food once a month per person. However, there are some people who have a greater need than that. So they might be going to multiple pantries. And we're hoping to...
And you just don't know.
We don't, but we're piloting some client database system right now that we could use among the coalition, so we could actually see, is it 5% of people going to multiple pantries? Is it 60%? Because that will help inform us how to use our limited resources to the best extent.
You know what I like about this is that you're presuming good faith.
Yeah,
You're not automatically assuming that whoever's coming in might be guilty and that they have to prove their innocence.
Well, I mean, those people exist in all walks of life, in all socioeconomic levels. I mean, there are people gaming the system, and it's just this.
And it doesn't bother you.
Well, because the large majority of people who you are helping have a genuine need.
The 97%
Yes.
shouldn't have to pay the price for the 3 that may be gaining the system.
Mark, the Jewish views, I have to bring in the Torah, the
Okay.
Jewish law.
Yeah.
And it says that there's a question if someone needs clothing, then, because there's a lot of laws about charity. I mean, obviously, it's not a new idea, unfortunately, since the beginning of time.
Sure.
So it says that if the person needs clothing, you can check them out because, all right, they have some kind of maybe ragged clothes on, or maybe they don't eat. When it comes to food, you don't ask. You just give over here because it could be life and death. I mean, people, you say, oh, I could use an extra sandwich. Some people, they haven't had a meal for a day or something. I mean, that's a life and death situation.
Well, and even with the senior citizen population, the older generations, a lot of them will not go to a pantry. Either they're too proud or they think someone else can use the food more than I can. One of our pantries was talking about a woman recently who came who said, what have you been doing for food? And well, I've been eating cat food.
Yeah.
And it's like, is that acceptable in this country to have people making the choice that it's okay for me to live on cat food?
Live very well.
Well, but that is not how our seniors should be living.
Did you ever?
Have you?
No, but I know people who have, and they love the cat. Just that they don't. No.
What road are you? Yeah, where are you going with this?
It's not that they don't that they couldn't eat human food, but that they really happen to taste.
Where's he going with this?
Nothing. I'm not going anywhere. I'm just telling you a story. But we did have the Brad Shear from the Mohawk Humane Society on, and he did say that they're providing dog and cat food to the food pantries so that people don't have to give human food to their pets.
Yes.
And that's what they were doing.
Another social services that I would think, that he said, what if a person, like you say, senior citizens, well, maybe you could use SNAP. Maybe you could. Why don't you go to the government also? I mean, maybe they're not totally helpful, but they surely are helpful in some ways.
Yeah.
And you go there and say, hey, you need just fill out a form.
Yep.
We'll show you which kind of resources to get a hold of.
A lot of pantries, try to connect people to other resources because it's an opportunity to say, what other help do you need? Because you're here, you need food. So if you need food, there's probably other things that you could use assistance with.
So do you give out like toothpaste at these food pantries and other sundries, as they call them?
Sure, toiletries and household products.
Yeah.
Some pantries try to stock those.
Because they don't go bad.
Yes, and donation, and those things are expensive for people to buy too.
And they're not covered on food stamps.
Exactly. So for people who want to do food drives, doing toiletries or household items is also, we actually did specifically toothpaste and toothbrush drive last summer.
Oh, you did?
But those items are definitely needed for people's dignity, you want to have shampoo, you want to brush your teeth. And in fact, the taking care of your teeth, actually a lot of people struggle with that if they can't afford the dentist or they're not buying toothpaste. And when you have bad dental health, a lot of times that impacts then what you can eat. If you have a cavity, you're not going to be eating, crunchy vegetables or, you know what I mean? So we want to make sure that people have those items.
You talked about healthy food. Do you advise people when you see them coming, maybe it's not you, do you say, you have too many sugars in your basket? Maybe you should think about having more carrots or celery in your thing, and not as many sugars. Do people if you did do that, do you think people would say, mind your own business? Or?
Well, there's different philosophies on
Right.
that, and each pantry has a slightly different approach to it. Some people have a better way of encouraging.
Yes,
you
they
know,
do. Yeah.
and it's not mandated. So, I think, as a coalition of pantries, I think we like to encourage that, but also recognize that sometimes people have limited cooking abilities, or, you can't force people to eat. You can't force me to eat healthy.
What if someone gave you some cookies and potato chips? You're
right.
going to just, okay, well, let's distribute it.
Sure,
A person allowed to
I
have a
eat
cookie
cookies and
already.
potato
Yeah,
chips.
but a lot of the people who are indigent or are down and out say, I don't have too many good things happening in my life.
Right.
I want to eat this. It's something that makes me feel good.
Like a treat?
A treat,
Is that-
I want the potato chips.
Sure.
Because anyway, you're located at 32 Essex Street, which is near Everett Road. It's off of Watervliet Avenue.
Yep.
So you're near the industrial section. Your CDTA is,
Yes,
right?
that's correct.
So where do you have, can people go there to get food, or are you just an office?
So we're an office. If people are looking for a food pantry resource, they can call our office at 518-458-1167. And we do also have, we've just put a map of our Food Pantry Coalition members on our website. It's
Right.
new.
Right.
So you can look at the map and see where you're at,
Right.
and click on the pantry, and it'll have their phone number information
Right.
as well.
But I was just wondering, so people shouldn't come to you looking for
No.
food?
If they would
You're
yes.
just an administrative arm of all these other food pantries.
Well, we're the coalition office,
Right.
yes. And but if you do have food to donate or other items to donate, you can drop it off.
And you'll get it to
We
the
have
food
trucks
pantry.
on the road Monday through Friday delivering the food right to the pantries.
So when you go out to the hill towns, did someone donate a van to you?
So we received funding to purchase a very low cost bus that we're revamping right now.
Okay.
It's a mini school bus. And
okay.
right now we're using our old minivan to do it, but we're going to need the capacity for more
Right.
food as we
So
identify
you're
a
taking the
site.
seats out
Yeah.
with the school kids and
Yeah.
all that, so.
But we like that idea because we're looking forward to partnering with schools.
Yeah.
So we feel like it's a comfortable looking vehicle. It doesn't look like a
Right.
like a scary
It's something
authoritarian.
institutional, something
Yeah,
institutional,
exactly.
yeah.
Yes, but we're taking fresh produce. We're picking up fresh produce from the regional food bank in the morning. We drive out. We're partnering with the Hilltowns Resource
Right.
Center. The clients are clients of the Hilltowns Resource Center.
Helderbergs.
Yep,
the
or
Helderbergs
Knox,
area,
Westerlo.
right. Rensselaerville.
Yep, yes. And so we pick up their pantry food, take it to their clients, and so we're kind of the wheels. That's what we do well for our coalition, is a lot of the distribution.
And you have, Fran McGarry sounds familiar. Was he
Yeah.
at Albany Med? Was
So-
he the PR guy at Albany Med?
Nope, he was with the fire, he was a fire commissioner.
Oh, that's what it was.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
So Fran's helping us out.
Right, and
He's
then-
actually our mobile food pantry driver. He's
Oh, he'll
piloting the
be-
program for it.
Okay,
Yeah, right
well, if
now.
there's a fire along the way, you
Yeah.
have to wait a little longer.
Yeah.
But you have Ralph Renna and Lee Sweeney.
Yes.
Okay, and then you have this Dan Cleveland.
Oh,
who's-
Dave. He's a volunteer.
Dave Cleveland,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep, he's a volunteer. Volunteer coordinator.
Right.
Yep. So he's in the office once a week. So if people are interested in volunteering, he can help place them either in our office or with some of the pantries in our
And
coalition.
then you got Danny Jacobson and Angie Pender-Fox.
That's right. Yep.
So those are the three, so you, Danny, and Angie are the three staff?
The office staff, yes.
The office staff?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, and then we have our driver.
And
Yep.
then the driver is not paid?
They are paid.
They're paid or reimbursed for gas? or
No,
what?
they're paid drivers.
Oh, they are?
Yeah, I
Then
mean,
why are they
they're
called volunteer? Volunteer staff, I mean.
I think that was just under Dave, because
Oh.
his position has an asterisk
Yeah,
after
right,
it.
right,
So it's
volunteer
just
coordinator.
referring to him.
Oh, okay.
Just Dave.
And then the team of drivers get paid, are they getting paid $15 an hour or?
Around that.
Yeah?
We've been working hard. So when I first started with the organization 15 years ago, I've been working hard to grow our capacity to provide living wages.
Oh,
So we've
good.
been working towards that to build that.
Okay. And do you have to be a certain age or have a certain CDL license in order to do this? Or?
You don't have to have a CDL license because we don't have, the trucks that we drive don't require that, but you do have to have, you have to be insurable
Right.
by our insurance company. So you know your driver's record and also how many years you've been driving.
All right. And what about when the school bus comes in? Is that going to be a
It's
CDL?
no, it's a small school bus.
Okay.
It's kind of like driving a Chevy truck, you
Yeah.
know, with a,
And I should make note that we had, that the vice president of your board is someone we had on the show, Jane Sanders.
Oh, really? Oh,
Well,
that's
she
great.
was with the senior centers
Sure.
of the Bethlehem Senior
Yes.
Center. So we
Yeah.
had to talk about senior programs, and
Sure.
her husband was the president of Beth Emeth.
Oh, okay.
So she was on the
right.
show here. So we'll let Jane know that you were on.
She's great, yeah.
she is. She's a
really
wonderful
great.
lady. Wonderful.
Listen, we're out of time,
We
maybe
are.
even overtime. But we're going to have to ask you again for another report card. You're doing incredible work, and I think very, very God's work of helping people to eat is the most basic human natural survival. You have to eat. And you're doing great work, and keep going, and with good success and good health.
Colorado's
you.
loss is our gain. So welcome.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.